Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the S.O.S, the Shout Out Show. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day, as wonderful days go. Let me say at the top of the show, we have an audible. Our guest today was Kanoya Ali from Chicago. He's a gang intervention specialist, community activist in South Chicago, who's going to be talking to us about gang violence. Every once in a while, like I said, you get this audible. And when I called my brother this morning, just to send him the information, he FaceTimed me from the hospital. He had what was then determined to be a minor stroke. I'm going to ask everybody to please make dua for him. He is a foot soldier as long as I've known him. He's worked with prison recidivism. He's worked with trying to develop job opportunities on the South Side. You know, a good-hearted brother, a good Muslim brother. So please keep him in your dua. Our topic today actually was supposed to be gun violence. If you've been watching the news, even if you haven't been watching the news, there's just a pervasive, if you will, and a persuasive argument for how do we address or addressing in this particular case gun violence. 3 days in a row. I've never seen this before. 3 days in a row. Baltimore, um, Philadelphia, and Fort Worth, Texas. Baltimore, Philadelphia, Fort Worth, Texas. Not necessarily in that order. All of them having mass gun violence. All of them in what we would consider minority neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods. All of them large black populations, large Latino populations. And it's just a certain randomness to the violence. And what Kanoya was going to talk about, and he gave me this incredible statistic about Chicago. So, I mean, we had this whole thing. We're still going to do the show when he feels better, inshallah. You know, he made this distinction, and I thought it was really, really amazing about the long-going efforts. And I was talking to Sister Satana about this, and it just really occurred to me just how long Chicago has been dealing with gang violence and gun violence by default. The thing he gave me that really made me think about this, he said there are 77 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. 15 of those neighborhoods represent 85% of the gun violence in all of Chicago. You don't have to be a mathematician, you have to figure out algorithms to say that. This is an insane fact. This and so many other things that we're beginning to see. Great comedian Mitchell Walters had a joke about the end of time. He said, well, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here. We are in this space, if you will, whereby truth is denied. You know, truth is denied. When I was talking to Kanoya, we talked about how, in some regards, it's so hard for brothers to see the truth, but at the same time understand that it doesn't have value. It's almost like being a good person, a great person, in a really, really bad situation. And unless that situation turns around immediately or you extract yourself from that situation, you'll find that it does corrupt the soul, that it does rust your armor. It does somehow take the wind out of your sails. This is a brother who, again, incredible brother. He's been in the service sector for a number of years. I mean, a long amount of years. I'm going to let him tell his story. But it hit me that we do have this economy, if you will. And there's a burden, if you will, on the economy of people who know how to get things done. He is one of those people that knows how to get things done. He has an organic connection to Southside Chicago in a way that I don't. Like if I go to Chicago to do service work, I call him to make sure it's right. And even New York, I call certain people in New York. If I went to Jersey, I would call people in New Jersey. This is the way it is. But I think what I feel, particularly today, is that there's an overburdening, if you will. We are burning out and we are losing people who know how to do something. So here on the Shout Out Show, we're going to actually talk about that. And I'm just to let you know, this is going to be an abbreviated show. I vacillated in between whether I wanted to do the show or just do a repeat. I just wanted to do a live show just to make sure we have something. And also it did spark me in the conversation I had with Brother Ali And this was the thing that was interesting, that even him FaceTiming me from his hospital room, if you will, in his hospital bed, he talked about the importance of this thing. This thing. He said, I'm ill, but this thing has to continue. And in a moment of clarity between both of us, we both knew exactly what he was talking about. That lights have to continue to shine in dim places until sun becomes something that's normal, that people expect to see light in these places. So listen, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about a couple other things, have some exciting news coming up. Don't move. This is the Shout Out Show with Preacher Moss. We'll be right back. All right, I want to go ahead and shout out my Shout Out Show family. Some of them are here, some of them are coming on. Let me give a shout out, of course. First of all, shout out family. Brother Kanoya Ali, man, we love you. Hope that you're doing well. May Allah increase you and give you shifa and give you a complete recovery. And that's from your brother. Also, we're going to give a shout out to Miss Eleanor, who was going through surgery today. As you know, she's had a number of surgeries, and it's not to belie the point that she's sick or things, just people. We have conditions with our bodies that we know about, we don't know about, and it's just a blessing that she's here. She spent time with my family, has always been a close family member. I call her sister, she calls me brother, even though she's older. She is my big sis, and I think the thing that's interesting is that she is in that population of people. I said that there's a culture of folks, if you will, taxed fairly unfairly with the fact that they know what to do. They know how to get things done, and she's one of them. Okay. Also, that's it for the sick and shut in. Let me go ahead and get to our stars in building, if you will. Like I said, this is going to be a short show. And if you have any ideas that you want to just jump in the comment section. I think we need to jump in the comment section. Shout out to Sister Rabia Chaudhry from our UK sister. And she and I have been in this conversation literally about the condition of African Americans. She's gone about this space and she's very, very detailed. She sends me articles about the wellness, the history of wellness with African Americans. And we've gotten to the place where that lack of wellness affects other aspects of cultural imperative, economics, education, family, things like that. And so we've gotten to a really deep conversation. She's been sending me some great articles. We appreciate you, sister. Thank you so much. Um, we got Sister Mary Moss, Mama Son. What's going on? She said blessings to the S.O.S family. I see she got it on that computer, got it working. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Great shout out. Let me shout out to Miriam, Sister Yasmin, and Mama Son. Everybody had a great week. This is 2.5 weeks, just family around. So this was amazing and very deeply appreciative. Shout out to Sister Ree. Ree, thanks so much for hanging in there and watching out for your brother and looking at, when you're moving people, you need people that support you. And she's been a day one person that supports for sure. What'd she say? Prayer sent. Thank you so much, Sister Ree. Appreciate you. I'm going to give a shout out to my brother, big brother Bilal Salahuddin and his queen, Sister Sonia. How you doing, Ak? Well, alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope that you're doing well and life is good. You know what? We haven't seen him. We'll give a shout out to Brother Altaf. We haven't seen him in a minute from Canada. We hope he's doing all right. He's one of our steadies, but like I said, things happen. Life denotes, and I say life demands narrative and also demands audibles. So we're going to get in that space. Next up, Walaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, our dear sister Satana Whitfield. Sister, we shouted you out when you got your award for Toastmasters. I know we haven't been able to do that publicly, but I'm going to do this. And for anybody who's engaged in public speaking and all of that, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. There's a science to it. There's a level up process where you become confident. You understand themes and narratives and how to work the room, how to read the room. She's done a great job. Did you get a certificate or something that we could look at, Sister Satana? Okay, maybe not. But we're going to go ahead and give you your flowers right now. Congratulations on that. That's right. Prayers of healing for my dear brother. My mom says prayers of healing. Yep, prayers of healing, Brother Ali. That's my main man. That's my main man. Not the rap artist. This is Brother Ali, who's in the streets outside Chicago. So let me paint this picture delicately, if you will. That in the United States, just like in Russia or Canada, any other, there's a knowledge economy. There is a market for knowledge, applicable knowledge. And I'm not talking about going to schools and things like that. These are people who have culled aspects of knowledge from society. In the religious tradition, we may talk about our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and the words would be he was illiterate, that he was unlettered, as we say. Unlettered does not mean that you are not learned. And I think the thing that I've begun to see and paying a little bit more attention to, and I would suggest everybody do that, do this if you have an opportunity, is to understand how people treat knowledge. Understanding about how people treat knowledge. Looking at the process and the prioritization of how we get information. When I talked to Brother Ali, it was interesting. He said because in the areas that he works at, there is a definite, I don't want to say conspiracy, but there's a definite issue, definite effort, if you will, a concerted effort to make sure that these people that have the highest needs, these people in critical situations, remain that way because they're not giving access to particular types of information. Case in point, if you want to apply for a job these days, you can be extremely talented. You could be working or have worked in the field for 20 some years, have all the expertise in the world. But there's a thing called a cert list. And when they go through a cert list, they have a certain level, they have job descriptions. And basic requirement may be that you did 4 years of college and you did a master's. That 4 years of college and that master's does not mean that you have the experience or expertise to work in this particular field. However, in this economy, it means that whatever has been accrued here somehow subsumes the fact that a person has vast knowledge over 20 years. Why is that important? Two reasons. One, because that person that has vast knowledge, that herd is thinning. That group is thinning. Every janaza that I go to now for elder, I approach it two ways. One, of course, that's the loss of a brother and sister, a human soul. I'm compassionate. But two, in the knowledge economy, I feel like we've lost a vital person. We lost a vital asset. And if you begin to look at television these days, television has become knowledge assets. If you look at the breakdown, they don't do news anymore. What they do is partisan viewership. You want the liberal thing, then you go to MSNBC. You want the conservative thing, then you go to Fox. If you want uh, finance, you go to CNNBC. You see what I'm saying? If you want, the R&B, you want all the black shows, then you go to BET. My mentor, Harry Weber, may Allah be pleased with him, told me years ago, and he wrote in a book a system that he came up with that he wrote about. It should have been a PhD paper, but he talked about the importance of target segmentation. And he talked about products at one level, But as we spent more time together, he talked about the dissemination of how information goes out. Information that goes out is processed one or two ways. One, it informs, but two, it builds consensus. And when you build consensus, what it is that you've established a knowledge base over what you think is real, what you think is pertinent, what you think is false, and of course, what you think is valuable. These days, it seems that there is a rudderless ship that runs to just say it's information. I haven't railed against social media. I've talked about some aspects that I think that is dangerous. I talked about some aspects that I think is addictive. The aspect that I never really talked about is this is a knowledge plan. If there's an algorithm that follows your tracking on social media and it figures out that you like to watch people who have mishaps, who fall downstairs or walk in the walls, they will provide you that space, and it's reflective of what they think is your knowledge and predictive in terms of how far your knowledge is going to go, right or left. Oh, hey, Altaf. Salam alaikum rahmatullah barakatuh. Well, let me give it back to you. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. He said, I've been on the show, not sure why Facebook's not posting my comments. Well, thank you for being on the show, man. But we gave you some love. Well, of course, we're going to give you some love. You said that the name of the show changed or just a typo. Hey, shout out. Yeah, it's a typo. Yes. You know whose fault it is? It's Sultana's fault because she's the executive producer. And it's my fault because I messed up. That's what it comes down to. So, you threw me off, man. That's funny. So it is a typo. And I actually have one that says shout out show. So forgive me. It's the shout show. Maybe, Sultana, maybe you should call it the shout show. So let me continue with this idea. And anybody can feel free to jump in. We're going to take a break here in a moment. And by the way, Altaf, we're doing a bridge show because our guest is not available due to illness. He's hospitalized. Make dua for Brother Ali, please. So what we begin to ask is two things. One, getting people to understand that knowledge. Knowledge is something, and I don't mean just knowledge like, hey, you know something. Knowledge is about you know something and it's applicable. People who work in the trenches, people with boots on the ground, teachers, policemen, firemen, folks in that, community activists, neighborhood doctors back in the day, they all had to possess a particular type of nomenclature for folks to, one, trust them, and two, to call on them, to see them as a part of the community collective. And I don't want to say I think we lost that. I think it's been a bridge. Like, we have these weird conversations. Like, Mark Rubin, who's a billionaire, has a white party in the Hamptons. And the white party in the Hamptons gets J-Lo, Ben Affleck, gets Kevin Hart, it gets Jay-Z, Beyonce, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, it's a party. That's no problem. But the funny part is it's a white party. So in that space, it's like, I cannot be a part of this social clique unless I'm wearing white. And this is not new with Mark Rubin talking about a white party. We've done this before. You can't wear certain things after summer's over. It's become that way with knowledge. When we come back, what I like to talk about is what are the traits for, I want to say, sustainable knowledge. There are, and I'll give some examples, but there's an art to being able to take knowledge, develop it, and of course disperse it. Let's talk about that when we come back here in the Shout Out Show. Don't you move. We'll be right back.
We just need help.
Imagine if there wasn't an olive branch. Muslim Family Services at your command. The people who help people have to say, We need your donations, don't delay. We all have struggles from time to time, but leaders dedicated is what you find. Before another person sheds a tear, support Olive Branch, you don't have to fear. Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. Action you can see, compassion you can feel. Sing it with me. Ooh, ooh.
All right. So we've been on this track a little bit. We're talking about knowledge. I found something really, really interesting reading the Quran. And I want to say it was last Ramadan. And it was the space that knowledge, sacred knowledge, if you will. Not just regular knowledge, but sacred knowledge that ties into the community, if you will, is the basis for successful society. That people can, I won't say latch into, but definitely model behavior around this whole aspect of sacred knowledge. Now, if you're of the religious ilk, that if you're Muslim, you understand that religious knowledge is tied into the fact that we all serve under the auspices of a creedal statement. You must say this or believe this in order to be able to, I want to say, talk or engage this aspect of religious prose. It's the same in Christianity, it's the same in Judaism. But outside of the religious community, and the religious community suffers because sometimes the knowledge that's given is not necessarily applicable. The whole idea of fiqh, if you will, is I think is very, very needed because it has to be adjustable to the times. It has to, in many ways, it has to be a test proposition, if you will, a test case, if you will, to, I guess, understand or expand the flexibility of whatever's going on. We don't necessarily have that now. We're very, very black and white, very pragmatic society in the context of not whether something is good knowledge or bad knowledge, but it's based on I have knowledge and this allows me to say whether you're right, I'm wrong, you're right, that type of thing. And I think it's gone a long way to kind of, I want to say, kind of destroy the fabric of learning, education, and knowledge throughout the country for the last couple of years. The interesting thing that's going to happen in the next couple months is we're going to have an election. We're going to have primaries leading to an election. At the same time, we're going to have a trial. Now, I may make jokes about Donald Trump, and they're very funny jokes, very relevant jokes, if you will. But here's something I think we should pay attention to. And it's the fact that you're going to have an individual that's going to speak his truth. And it's going to be under the auspices that we all have knowledge of what this gentleman has done. Hear me what I'm saying now. He's going to speak his truth, and he's going to speak his truth totally oblivious to the knowledge that is around him. Sometimes I joke about Trump being the emperor that has no clothes. It's scary because this emperor now, those clothes that he has no clothes, has somehow taken that knowledge of nothingness and turned into an asset. That we have people who are literally going to go to the polls and vote on stuff that has no content, no merit, no value, and no basis. Now, I'm looking at these things, and I'm going to tell you where I'm looking at it from. I'm looking from the fact that my lens is a 56-year-old lens. I'm a 56-year-old black man here in the United States. My lens is looking from the fact that I wasn't always 56. That at times I was 6, and I was 16, and I was 26, and I was 36. And if you're raised in a certain type of condition, environment, knowledge is only good if it is built on the foundation of truth. That we can verify it. That if you say who you say you are, then you should be able to stand here and I should be able to go to that person and not only find out who you are, but they can tell me who you are and what you are about, if you will. And somehow the disdain has become that communication is somehow so skewed and so, I want to say, tarnished that we really can't talk about knowledge anymore. You know, I love the Nation of Islam because they were the first ones to frame this term, and this is very important. Knowledge is self. Knowledge of self. And when I used to run with the five percenters, knowledge of self was a big thing, particularly in the African American community, because the knowledge that was given to us of ourselves, for ourselves, from society was bad knowledge. It was knowledge to make sure that you what? Continue to engage bad knowledge. In Islam here in the United States, one of the biggest things that we deal with is the fact is that we have a set, rote understanding of knowledge, religious imperative, but somehow, over time, we wear down and all of a sudden we begin to compromise. That this knowledge over here somehow is greater than what we've been taught. That the value, God forbid, of this knowledge that comes from the Quran and the Sunnah is somehow equal, if you will, to what everybody else is doing. So I put that out there to say a couple things, and then I'm gonna get out of here. One, I'm gonna emphasize knowledge of self. I'm gonna greatly emphasize knowledge of self. Why am I saying that? Because if you get someone who is self-critical, if you will, and when I say self-critical, it is a part of the process of critical thinking, that you move out the rubbish, if you will, and you build a foundation of your knowledge on truth, then you can have a collective that actually means something. You know, as much as I'm sitting here talking to you about this right now, you have a Supreme Court that are making decisions and laws that will remain on the books. That the truth, if you will, is not a truth that comes from God. It's a truth that comes from people who are decidedly and invested in making sure their truth is the one that makes it to the marketplace. Now, we just had 4th of July. We always go through 4th of July and people go, well, my people were slaves on 4th of July. Yes, they were slaves on 4th of July. Yes, they were. But the thing that's important is that they didn't see themselves as slaves. They saw the condition as enslavement. But they always thought as free people. And it's a very, very technical and a very, very inspiring and a very, very complex understanding of what that process was, because in the midst of all of this oppression, in the midst of all of this savagery, in the midst of all of this barbarism, these people figured out correct knowledge. So when the time came to be free or the time came to run away, they were working at the highest intellectual capacity. So that's all I'm saying. Can we get back to working to our highest level of intellectual capacity in the midst of all this stuff? In the midst of all these programs? To reiterate what Brother Ali said, 77 neighborhoods in Chicago. Out of those 77 neighborhoods, 15 of those neighborhoods represent 85% of the gun violence in Chicago. You do the math. You ain't got to be an accountant. This is a shout out show. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.